Barossa boys hit the lead. Look at Rough Habit. Rough Habit's flying on the rails. Rough Habit moved up, grabbed the lead, and he's won the Stradbroke.
City Hall and Monopolised coming after Show No Emotion and Toledo inside the 100. It's Toledo and Monopolised taking the lead together. Toledo's going better. Toledo took the lead and Toledo beat Monopolised. Look at Shower Heart. Shower Heart is coming from the tail with Felvalon. Shower Heart and Felvalon. Shower Heart, Felvalon. They hit the line. Shower Heart.
Under the loop, Blackheart Bart from the Virginian. Under the loop and Blackheart Bart. Blackheart Bart under the loop. Under the loop, Blackheart Bart. Under the loop, Blackheart Bart. They hit the line and the Stradbroke. And under the loop, I think's one. And Trekking down the outside, finishing brilliantly. Trekking's raced up and gone to the lead. Tie Zone down the outside for Endless Drama. Trekking's a length and a half in front. Tie Zone tries, but Trekking's clear in the Stradbroke. A length and a half in front. It's all Trekking for the Blue Army. Here comes the blood now. Alligator Blood on the outside, stormed up and took over. Alligator Blood's in front, flashing like Private Eye, but Alligator Blood won the Stradbroke from Private Eye. Steffi Magnetica, Bella Nipotina down the outside. The inside, Steffi Magnetica, Bella Nipotina. They're the two, they hit the line, and Steffi's won the Stradbroke.
And now on PG Podcast Network, it's time for the year-round carnival with Vince Accardi and your host, Racetrack Ralphy.
Chase the sun indeed. Some absolute legends of the Stradbroke over the years as we look forward to previewing it with Vince Accardi from Daily Sectionals. Good morning, mate.
Good morning, Ralphie. Here we are, Queensland. Let's go.
Yes. Shoulders back and chest out. Stradbroke, one of the iconic races here. And fascinating race too. Big field. Wonder if they're going to be flying along. What's your mindset about how the track's playing last week? It was soft after no rain. There's again no rain, but I dare say, and I know we touched on this on the Monday, obviously this track's got some issues as far as getting very firm at this stage. So what's your mindset going into it?
Well, I haven't checked to see if they put any rain on the track.
No rain.
Water. They water it at all? No. Okay.
No irrigation. Yep.
Well, we can only hope if the track's... we just can only make an assumption that the track's going to be on point, and that's what we've got to work with. No matter what happens, it's not going to be, heavy or anything like that. We're going to have some sort of, conditional deterioration somewhere on the track. But rail F4, Ralphie, I probably don't want to be with the horses hard up on the inside. I am looking for those runners who can possibly get to the middle of the track. It doesn't mean the inside runners won't be able to fan out. I wouldn't be surprised if they come around the turn and they're 3 or 4 off the fence. That puts them almost in what I would consider not the optimum lane, but the beginning of where you should be. I just feel this is going to be a race about the barrier that you're drawn is going to be good or bad for you.
Well, the typical Stradbroke, they fly along out in front, and the horse that's off pace and got genuine strength can win it. And this does look serious heat up front.
It really does, and this is probably one of the big challenges, because when you look at where certain horses are drawn, what's their probability of what they're going to do, I can't help but feel that some of them won't have a choice. They'll have no choice but to go forward and therefore create that pressure. And, we just start with Front Page and Rothfire first and foremost. Front Page is drawn 20. This is a horse, in my view, that if you're at 1,400, you probably want to have a little bit of a breather somewhere. I don't feel you're going to get that breather because from 20, you've got no option but to push forward. And that sort of, in my view, set the tone about like what the expectation pace-wise should be. And I couldn't lock anything in less than a +3, just for the sheer fact that that's where Front Page is drawn. Then I looked at where J-Mac's drawn with Rothfire. What are they going to do from 16? I don't feel they've got any choice either. And you know this horse has got excellent tactical speed and is also going to apply some sort of pressure, whether he's going to come across and want to tag Front Page. Maybe I would say that's the smartest thing to do, because if they go at that pace, they're almost assured themselves that comfortably getting across, and then they get their opportunity if they can sort of take a little bit of pressure off in the race in the middle. But I don't mean dramatic, Ralphy. I just mean if they can just subtly drop that speed, they're probably going to find themselves in a terrific place. But that leaves both those horses negative late. They're not. I don't feel that they're the strongest horses at 1,400 metres, and therefore they're always going to be challenged over that last couple of 100 metres because of the way they're set up on the structure of the barriers. If they were drawn inside 10, they probably could be in a much more controlling scenario through that first 400 metres. And I'm not saying they'd be able to get away with much less than +3, but they probably could be in a situation where we might go only +2 or 1.5, and that might help them a bit more to breathe. But I feel that, +3 or faster is going to be where we're at, Ralphie.
So War Machine, to me, looks faultless leading into this race. What's your take on War Machine?
Well, it is in the middle, virtually. The reality is, when I looked at the line about where I expect this horse to be, there's about 8 runners that look pretty rock solid above like my internal sort of chessboard red line saying, okay, benchmark better. It is one of those runners. That I feel is going to help them clear the field with Tim Clark. They definitely will be in an excellent position to be able to take a sit on a bunch of runners, and big probability of cover and being the first runner to be able to make that assault for victory inside that last 250, maybe 300 metres. Tim Clark doesn't want to go too early, but I would say somewhere around that 250 mark, he's going to get his chance to take on those couple of front runners that are left and hopefully hold them all off.
So that's on the grid. What's he actually done on the clock leading in?
Well, when we look at it from that perspective, it's very, very difficult horse to fault, Ralph. At the moment, this horse is, in my view, on fire. And you look at his last start performance, +2.3, over 13.50 at Doomben. Even the run before at Caulfield, which was a half length above benchmark, that was probably the sign of where this horse was at. His first 2 runs were excellent. He's made that next step up. He showed a lot of speed in a race where they did go pretty quick, Ralphie, at Doomben. I feel he's going to have a lot of benefit from that run. It's 21 days. He won't need to go as fast as that, because if he's going that fast, the front runners are going to be going +6, 7, and they're going to be gone by the time they get to the turn.
Exactly.
So I just feel that this runner, coming off that fast run, the first section, last start, and winning, is really got a big, big advantage in coming into this race. He really has I'm not saying he's got the dominant advantage, because when I look at overall performances, there are a number of horses on their day that can sort of get to that level, but he's the hot runner in form.
Gee, it's going to be fascinating what the price will be. At the moment, he's sort of low 3s. I think as much as 320 is available. Look at the punters' odds comparisons. And the thing is, though, tomorrow, Vince, there's a whirlpool. Race 8. Is this the one that the Avalanche comes for?
Could be. I don't feel it'll be that clear cut. I feel that they could come for a number of runners. I'm not taking the view this will be a race where they're going to pin their shoulders back and say this is the standout runner. He's got good capability. He's done it once, that number. He's got to do it again. But everything looks positive.
Okay. So the horse, let's start with the top weight here. And this is pretty rare that you see this. So this is historical. It's not the past 12 months, but it's historical. What is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, 10 of the top 11 performances in this race, if you take out Waterford, who's at the moment emergency, is from Private Eye. That's his genuine class historically. So where's he at now?
Well, I went and had a look at his barrier trial just this morning, and I'm still catching up on a few things, Ralphy, and that Rosehill trial was very good. And this is what I needed to see, like, because this is a big ask, because if you're just going on face value first up, 1400, looks like a bit of a problem. But when I looked at the trial, he has genuinely put down the score of 0.3 above and has placed himself at the top of the grid in terms of performances on the morning, which is a really, really positive sign. Probably just a slight thing that I didn't like was I just didn't like the negative over the last couple of 100 metres, in the sense that he's obviously got a lot more improvement to come. And is that going to be enough for this first attempt at this distance first up? I feel that Joseph Pride in some aspects has made a good decision. I just would have liked maybe one more trial. But he's there, and I do have an expectation that I don't see this horse running anything less than about 0.4 above benchmark. That's not enough, right? But if he can run up to, say, like what he did in November last campaign, a Rosehill over 1,500, and bring that first up, then he's hard in the race.
I'm getting flashbacks, and we're going back a while, but that's how long we've been working together, Vince. But about 8 years ago, Red Kirk Warrior was first up, and in the Newmarket, and David Hayes was running it, and he said, "No, this horse doesn't need a run. I don't care what the historical say." And he ended up being $34, and a lot of it was due to the fact that no horse had won the Newmarket first up. And David Hayes said, "I don't care. This is what's best for Red Kirk Warrior." You know what he did? He won it again next year first up. So there's a lot of historical negatives about it. Private Eye, no horse has done this first up. But if he's the best horse in the race and he turns up at his best, he's going to beat somewhere in the finish, ain't he?
Well, he is, and if you look at the structure of the race for Nash, where he's drawn 10, I have an expectation this horse. He if he goes all the way back, I think that's a big problem. But I don't feel he will. I feel he's a big chance of running somewhere around -1, -2 through that first split time. That sort of puts him like in that touch zone, and this is taking the assumption that we're going to run somewhere in that low threes above standard through the first section. He could comfortably be inside 6 lengths, which will be beautiful for this horse. And he won't have to burn any fuel, Ralphie, and he'll have everything for a last-ditch effort at 1,400. So I had a look at, who's there. He almost clears the whole field, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2 runners, about who's going to have the strongest last 400 if he can run out through that first section somewhere around that -1. And mind you, he's 100% going to get cover. He's a big chance of being able to get the split at the right time. The only disadvantage he would have is if, for whatever reason, they went all the way back, then he may as well be 100 to 1.
Yeah, no doubt. So Golden Miles on the quick back up from the Kingsford Smith last week. It was a fast race at 1,300 metres. He's got the low draw there, so Jason Collett can just basically lob him. I would assume probably he'd be looking for third pair, something like that. So you've got it at the moment second on your most advantage on the early edition of Race Speed Profiles. So how does he profile coming into this race?
I feel he profiles superbly. I mean, they've kept these runs apart. So it's a little bit of an awkward pattern, but they've all just been single runs. So they haven't been like a couple of runs, then a break, another 2 runs, maybe 3 and a break. They've just given 1 run at a time, and they've run with a fresh profile, which is pretty good. And now going with the fast backup. It's interesting when you look at that last run at 1,300 metres at Eagle Farm, and the horse has gone out +5. On one aspect, you look at that and say, that's a negative. Now, it was a negative for this race. Like, definitely a negative to be able to go at a record pace for this horse through the first section. And then you could just see the horse was really battling through the last 2 sections. And overall, not saying the track was, really wet or anything like that. It was just borderline damp. It probably took a little bit more out of the horse, and this is why we've seen a a pretty soft last 200 metres, but I feel that if, from an engineering point of view, with this race in mind, that's probably fantastic because he's going to come out in this race here, and I've sort of pinned him running somewhere near. Let's have a look here. Yeah, I'd say on the lows benchmark, on the highs about +1. But okay, if he can run a half length above benchmark, drawn 2, he's in a fantastic place because as long as Collett doesn't fall asleep and stays engaged, which I can't see any reason why he shouldn't, right? When he peels to the turn, he only has to go in one direction, right? To the left. And he's going to have the full open space. And really the only horse he's going to be worrying about, in my view, is War Machine. And that's got to be his main thing that he's got to worry, because they're going to reel in the leaders, Ralphy. They're going to absolutely reel in those 2 leaders. He's proven that he can run above benchmark through all the splits. And there's plenty of evidence there. Just go to the April run at Caulfield, Ralphy, where all sections were above benchmark in a reasonably solid run race. Now, he didn't finish where you'd like him to finish, but this horse is now absolutely ready for a peaking performance. And I've sort of felt that this horse is going to run somewhere like, if he only runs like +1, that might be not a good outcome, but I feel this horse is going to run a lot closer to +2 and gets the favourable race shape. And just look, the rider for me, Ralph, he's a 50-50 rider for me. I would have loved J-Mac on him, right? Because then I reckon he would have been a standout.
Yeah, I don't think J-Mac could have made the weight. And
no.
but one filter I should put on this, because it's a real good filter, and we do this year round, obviously, for the big races. When a horse is just set for a grand final, it is a beauty. And at Caulfield, the race you mentioned, that was a fast race. He wasn't set for that. And then blinkers went on in his 2 Queensland runs. The reason he's on the quick backup is the Kingsford Smith was washed out from a week before. He was ideally 2 weeks between runs.
Right.
Instead it's 7 days. But his 2 Queensland runs have been in blinkers. This is grand final day. So it is such a good filter. And at least we know with this horse, I reckon he's been set for this since the time he came in for this campaign.
Yeah, I'm sure that the Cummings man, Hong Kong bound's going to be very keen for a big performance.
A big finale, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So from that race last week, Golden Mile finished third and a close-up third at $26. Fourth, 2 lengths back was Kamachi. And again, I can't help thinking this is its grand final with the weight drop. We don't sort of obsess about weight, of course, but more with the fact that saying that this is trainer's intent, this is grand final day. Craig Williams sticks, and last prep, 5th up, won the Rupert Clark Handicap. Tomorrow, it's 5th up. So I think that's the real pattern that they've been looking for and targeting. What's her chance of peaking tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I've had to put this horse right up there, Ralphie. Hard to deny it, not to be there. Firstly, when you look at the setup of the race, number one, I look at, okay, where are you drawn? You're not drawn the best in terms of gate position, 14, but realistically, the horse is going to be, I feel, if Craig is aggressive, that I feel that it's going to be a big negative for the horse. But if Craig just allows the horse to roll out and just lets it settle, it's probably going to be around that 2 to 3 lengths below benchmark, and that's still good enough to allow the horse to be in the strike zone. Could have some little traffic issues. That's possible from where it's drawn. I do feel there's a good chance the horse will have cover, so that's not going to be a disadvantage. And he's guaranteed the lanes. Like, he's absolutely guaranteed the lanes. And he's very, very capable of closing extremely strongly if they can be negative first split. If they're not, if Craig gets a bee in his bonnet and he feels he has to be more aggressive because he doesn't like where he might settle and rides the horse, let's say, to the pace he ran last start, then that's bad news for the horse. So I've taken a position that he's not going to ride it that way, and he's going to ride to the horse's normal pattern. And if he does that, I felt that he's a huge chance. And again, there's plenty of proof from that Caulfield run from November last year. Horses like, Another Will, we know the capability of that horse. It's pretty talented. And that 2.3 that it produced that day is enough to get you on the podium here. You just need the right run.
And he rode it off pace that day. So
Yep.
it's a fair flag. Transatlantic, I wish he gets in. At the moment, his first emergency. If he gets in, can't help thinking, again, put that circle around. This is what the only race he's been targeted for. Last December on the quick backup, what did he do on a 7-day backup? This track, this distance, 28th of December.
Well, that day there, Ralphy, he's turned up and run plus 2.9. Even from a race matrix point of view, which is sort of tagged at about a length and a half off that sort of profile and sort of sat there. But again, I looked at the type of runners who were in that race. It was a decent field. I just sit back here and say, well, there he was. He ran benchmark. He was running virtually benchmark through that first section. His last 400 metres was like a rocket, Ralphie, +7. So this horse has got plenty of capability. His last run, I was really surprised at just what they did with the horse, like how fast they've gone, and +6.9 is really injecting a lot of speed in the horse, and it was like on that pace line, faster than what would be ideal, but he was ready to probably absorb that sort of heat, and also has some advantages now if he gets a run with the 7-day backup, that he won't need to be ridden with that aggression, Ralphie. Well, when I say to you he won't need to be ridden with that aggression, I guess they will be traumatised about what they do from the gate.
Well, they'll be hoping to tag some of the good jockeys that are out wide anyway.
And that's what Angela Joan will need to do, Ralphie, is exactly that. If they don't do that and try and hustle the horse like they did last start, it would be probably a crying shame. And what it will probably also do is inject an extra length of speed, because he's capable of running +3 or 4, and then all of a sudden that sort of 3.5 early speed is going to look like 5, which is just going to be no hope for the front runners at all.
I was going to ask you one. It's on the third line, even though it's $11. That's probably how dominant War Machine is. But Rising Dawn's also on the quick backup from that Kingsford Smith last week. It doesn't meet the criteria of grand final since it came into the stable. And by that, I mean, obviously they had a throw at the stumps to Doncaster and ran a career best race. He's a good horse, and he's got a terrific strike rate with great tenacity. Will this race shape be a negative for him? Because really from low, he's going to have to be part of that heat, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, what I ended up doing, Ralph, is I feel that Declan's going to have him a little bit further back, Ralphie, from 3. Yeah, I feel that this horse is big possibility. One, is he going to run to the speed of last start? I'd say absolutely not. And this is just because he's had the 63 days. There's probably a little bit of freshness kept. And this is one of the things that the Hayes boys sometimes don't always get 100% on point when they have a bit of a break with the horse. They've just got a little bit too much speed in them. And that was evident in this run. If you look at his traditional profile, he's definitely a horse. Whilst he doesn't like to be camped too far off him, his go-to speed is +2, -2, -3. If they try and engage, I don't feel the horse is going to want to do that. Personally, I feel this is a big negative off the 3.6 if they're going to really want to try and attack. If they attack, he's going to be one of the first horse beaten. But if they let him run to his profile, he's going to be not in the most favourable position. He's going to need just a little bit of luck, but he will then have the opportunity to be super strong over the last 400 metres. And he's a runner that on his day, he's there, Ralphie. Like, you look at that Randwick run, the +2.9 over a mile. That's a pretty strong run, Ralphie. When you look at those horses that are finished in front of it, and the ones behind it, there's no way you could sit there and say this is the horse that's equal in class to Private Eye.
So we get to I just want a couple of, from imagination point of view, at big odds, and I like finding for you to challenge you. There's one here. There's no way I'm letting this go, and it's Robusto. And I want to ask you through this prism. This is its first ever first up run for Bjorn Baker. So he learned a lot with this horse during the last prep. It came from Chris Waller, and it kept climbing and climbing and climbing, and its win was dynamic. Now we just mentioned the transatlantic run. Robusto ran second to it, but it was on the decline after winning that Ingham. First up here, we spoke about the historics, but Bjorn Baker's chosen to come here first up. It's drawn wide, but maybe that means that a elite big race rider like Kieran McAvoy gets to come across. Is he a chance at $23?
Well, the reality is, if you just look at his line of speed and what's most likely that Kieran will do if he's got his tactics in check, he's most likely going to come out through that split time around benchmark, and that pace there clears half the field, and that puts him. He's not going to be. Well, he could become a lead pack runner and just be off that hard lead, but he just might find himself almost in the golden position, 3-4 lengths off the leader, travelling benchmark. Now, if he does that, that's almost ideal for this horse, because off a benchmark, he's still going to be quite capable of running +2.5, maybe +3 last 400 metres, because he's a horse that doesn't have a booming sprint, but has, I sort of call him, he's like that sort of horse that just have solid pace from start to finish and can get stronger off a good speed very, very late. So from that point of view, he's there. I did score him up, Ralphy, in the end, from where I had him initially on the race speed profiles. I've actually pushed him up. He doesn't quite get into the top 4, but he's right up there. And I've sort of taken note that he's potentially a surprise horse.
Mm-hmm. What do you make of his trials?
I had a look at his trials last night, and when I sort of just sat back and thought about, okay, what does this all mean again, knowing that what Bjorn's capable of doing. The Warrnambool trial, the problem is the ground conditions, Ralphy, right?
Sorry, Warren Farm.
Yeah, I don't know what to sort of suggest from that, but the reality is, in terms of where the horse is at, I do expect him to be very, very forward and a big showing first up. Like he's already borderline benchmark now, and this is another reason why, a little bit like Private Eye, they need to be respected because they're going to run big.
And the other horse at big odds is Desert Lightning. He's on the quick backup. We mentioned the transatlantic performance last week. This was the switch-on run for him because he showed a little bit for Peter Moody last prep, but that was only his first Australian prep. He was a Group 1 winner in New Zealand. Is there a chance that off that run, he can go again?
Why not? I mean, there he is. He's turned up and gone benchmark. He's also at the run at a pretty solid pace. Mind you, he has raced faster than that in the past, so that's not a disadvantage for the horse. Probably if there's anything that might be slightly against him is coming back, even though it's only 100 metres, is that in his favour? Is that in his favour, or is he better off slightly longer, like 16 to 2,000 metres? So that was the only disadvantage I'd seen with the horse, was that just with all that speed taken out of him, he's not going to have any speed. And he's going to be probably in that further back than ideal scenario, and he could be looking for distance, more distance over the last couple of hundred. So maybe they'll be hoping that they just go super crazy up front and turn the race more into a mile.
In summary, on the Friday morning, we talk business tomorrow, but it's hard to knock War Machine. Would that be a fair summation on current form?
Well, right now, the runners that I've sort of really pegged hard, Ralphy, is War Machine, Kamachi, Golden Mile. That's where we should be looking very carefully at right now.
All right, race 9 is another whirlpool race, and unfortunately the field's dropped right away here. There's only 8 runners, and one of them's a complete bolter. So this will be very interesting what the market does. What do you reckon the pace will be in race 9?
I reckon this is good. It's a small field. Okay, I love that, right? Okay, pace-wise. At one end, we could go +2. that there is that chance that could happen. I know it's a small field. And so, okay, well, if we want to factor all that in, what could that mean at the opposite end? We go -2. Either way, I don't believe it's going to be a crawl. It's a good field, and there's a level of competitiveness there. So I'll be surprised if they went for the big anchors. Look, I'm not saying that that can't happen, Ralphie, and then all of a sudden we've got this disaster -20 first section. I can't see it in any of the runs from a number of horses in their recent outings that sort of indicate that we're going to crawl. So I'm just saying possibly below average, -2, maybe a really bad day might be -5, but we could also be running benchmark in this small field.
So Faulkner Park smashed him in this race last year. This time in, he's ran 3 placings. The last 2 have been behind Antino, and he's third at Rose Hill in 22nd of March. West of Sestita. They're pretty handy horses.
Yeah, absolutely. How can you fault the horse, right? The horse has been been superb. He's had plenty of racing as well, so it's not like the horse hasn't had plenty of racing, but it's definitely going into this race rock hard fit. I feel that the steam out of the race in terms of pace and what it's faced is definitely going to be a big advantage for the horse, because I don't feel this horse appreciates, because of what happened last start, he was still forced to run plus 7.7, and even the run before on the Gold Coast, Ralphie, the horse is going plus 5.7, so it's been running fairly quick, and I went even further back and had a look at that Randwick run back in April, over 2,000 metres, and that's the hot field, and the horse is going well above benchmark. So no matter what happens tomorrow, this horse is going to be back in its zone, high probability, worst case scenario running benchmark, but more likely to be running 5, 6, 7 lengths below benchmark, which is going to be huge for this horse late. And this is, I feel, the way the horse likes its races to be run, where the tempo isn't hard through the first section, and it's just allowed to really storm home over the last 800 metres, particularly at 2,200. So from that perspective, it comes in superbly. It's got a rock-solid profile that sits, in my view, firmly between 2.2 and very close to +3 range, which is more than enough to put you in as a hot chance here. I mean, the hurdle rate here is like +1.8. This horse easily clears that. And I don't feel too many other horses easily clear it at this distance range. So love the fact that this is a good race for it.
So the horses from the same race, and we should underline Fighter Jenny set an absolutely insane tempo, even by her standards. So Faulkner Park was second, Kovalika was third, Militarized was fourth, Biodojant was fifth, and Osipenko was seventh. So you've ended up with Militarized as next of that group. And why do you expect him to be able to improve? I dare say part of it will be second start at the distance range, but without Fighter Jenny up front.
Yeah. That's right, Ralphie, for sure. But there's a few little things that you've got to look at this horse is. I looked at the run going all the way back to the Valley just to sort of understand this horse for this sort of distance. And, okay, there was an 1,800 metre run at the Gold Coast, but I wanted to specifically look at that run at Moonee Valley, and that's going back quite a while. But I just sat back and looked and said, okay, look at the competition that day. There was an elite field. And you look at it and said, okay, the horse isn't running the money, but wow, I felt that the performance of +2.8 was very real. And then I asked myself the question, well, is this horse that sort of level anymore? Well, before the 366-day break, or 36-day break, the horse actually broke it on 2 occasions. One was at Randwick over a mile. This is April 24, +3.2. And the other run was +3.1 going back in March. And then I went to this preparation that it's in now. And there's the run, Ralphie. This is the run that captivated me. +2.1 Randwick, the 5th of the 4th over a mile. No speed in... Yep, that's exactly right. That's exactly right, Ralphie. Now, This horse has had plenty of speed injected. I reckon the horse has hardened itself up. And I just sit back and say, this is probably as best a chance you're ever going to get at this distance range. J-Mac on board, he's really going to be able to do whatever he wants. And all he's got to realistically be able to do is allow the horse to have its best possible finish. And I wouldn't be surprised if this horse runs his last 400 around +5 and ends up winning.
Well, we never know with the master trainer Chris Waller because he says what he wants to say publicly, but sometimes who knows what he thinks behind the scenes. But that long break was due to a failed attempt at going to stud. This time in gelded. Maybe this is his grand final from the time he's come in now gelded. This is the big race. They've said, well, let's try and see if we can get him to peak because obviously, 3 duck eggs there, but one of the duck eggs, as you said, was the Doncaster. 2 Queensland runs, one on that bottomless track, and then, as you said, the speed in the legs last start. Maybe this is grand final day for this horse.
Well, it's really interesting now that you're saying that. Before I went away, they were talking about how this horse, and they have their little weekly chat.
Yes.
They were talking about this horse was flying. Yep. And there's some evidence there, isn't there? Even though he ran 10 or 20. They could be right. And now, they definitely didn't get the right circumstances last start, Ralphy. All they were able to do out of that was bring the horse right on for rock hard fitness. And I just say, look out tomorrow.
So conversely, the one horse we haven't touched on that's in the market here is New Endeavour. That came from that washed out meeting at Eagle Farm. The track was bottomless by the time it won. It won well. It was dominant and it's kept climbing. This is its third Australian prep and last Australian prep. It ran 2 terrific races, including beaten the nose by Bois d'Argent.
Well, they've got this horse rock hard fit as well, Ralphie. And we know the capability, A, from the stable, B, what it's most likely to do. Mind you, on a class level, I've got a little bit behind a horse like Militarize and Faulkner Park. And this horse will have to run to its best, but what is positive about the horse is, you definitely can rubber stamp its 2,000, 2,200 metre profile has been very, very solid. When I looked at that last run at Eagle Farm, there was probably a lot to like about that run as well. First of all, you look at the run before from Gosford coming in from a race that was really hurdle speed, making a big switch around in speed from run to run. That can have impact on horses' overall performances. They sort of slowed it subtly mid-race, took a little bit of the shine off its capability in terms of how strongly this horse can close, and does get a setup, again, I feel, where we're not going to be running fast, Ralphie. This horse's greatest asset is its last 400 metres if it's allowed to breathe early, and they'll get that opportunity. And it's rock hard fit. So it's one that sits there, but because I am looking for who's the classiest runner, because I feel that's going to be the winner. So I just had him slightly behind, not dismissing it. It's sort of there, borderline top 4, but not one that I'm going to want to charge in on.
Can't help thinking there's a whirlpool race and there's only 2, thankfully, but
Right.
one's the logical favourite, Faulkner Park, and the other one, the J-Mac horse, Militarise. I think the market might be just gravitating to those 2, so be interested to see how it pans out. It certainly is. Now, every race is a stakes race, so what we'll do, they're the 2 big races. We're going to pick up the pace here, and I want to touch on all 7 of them, so let's go in reverse order here. From race 7, it's a Group 2 for the fillies and mares, the Dane Ripper Stakes. She was a Ripper, wasn't she? And on the grid here, you've got Alentia as the most advantage, and Firestorm, though, is the favourite for the race. I probably should put an overview here that this is the lead-in, the preliminary final, if you like, because there's the Tatsiara in 2 weeks. But at 1,300, there's probably 2 ways of looking at the Waller mares. One is on pure best performances, it's Firestorm, but that's an outlier run, and on typical performances, it's probably Alentia, isn't it?
Well, firstly, Alentia, how can you fault its profile?
You can't.
Well, first of all, look like this, Ralphie. I mean, it went for 1,500 metres. They gave it 28 days, back to 1,200. That couldn't have been anything but to give them the run. And then I'll sit here and say, okay, here we are, 1,300 metres. Okay, it's not 14, but the reality reality is you've been profiling like a horse that's firmly racing at the moment around that plus 1.5 to 2 range. You're 63 days between runs. You've got that freshening. It's hard for you not to run well, no matter what happens, no matter if there's another run after this. I just feel this is probably a series of 2 runs, and both could be quite big. So I just sat back here and said, well, I'm pinning you right now. You're going to run plus 1 on the low, possibly plus 1.9, dangerous. Firestorm, on the other hand, 3 runs in, big run, 2 runs back, Ralphy. That's probably the star run, right? 1,500 metres, huge, plus 4.1. On that figure, you'd say unbeatable on that figure. I look at the setup of that race. It was a tough race. Half a length above benchmark first split time, plus 1.3 between the 8 and the 4. Wide in the lanes with a 9.4 overall last 400. Massive. Then got the reverse at the subsequent start with a minus 10.3 first section. And now here we are, going all the way back, 70-day break, and we're turning up 1,300 metres. Big expectation for this horse to also run very strongly, Ralphie. I couldn't pin the horse anything lower than a 0.3 above benchmark, and I believe that's the entry level. And on that, the horse automatically put itself top 3, and I just sit back here and say, well, this probably tells me a lot about the rest of the competition are there to make up numbers, even if they're set for other races.
All right, we'll keep that reasonably tight. The one I just want to mention one horse though, because I've just got a feeling this is a bit of an explosion coming. What's the best of Arctic Glamour's level?
Okay. Well, last campaign we peaked with a +2. Yep. Mind you, the race matrix has sort of kept its runs more like a benchmark +1 type of profile, but that run there, I thought was very significant. Number one, the speed the horse travelled at in that particular race, 4.7 lengths below benchmark, had a booming mid-race of +8 and still was very strong overall last 400 metres, a +4.8. Now, that first up run before this 98-day break, I don't know why they gave it the 98 days, Ralphie. Did something go wrong?
I don't know either, but it was blocked the entire straight, and I've got a feeling maybe they said, okay, we're at this stage, let's just freshen up for Queensland, maybe.
Yeah, well, it was huge. It was absolutely huge, and the horse was almost going to take off from where it started from the previous campaign. And yes, overall performance was, borderline benchmark, but goodness me, what would have happened if there was another 100 metres or 200 metres tacked onto that race? Probably gets victory, Ralphie. So I wouldn't be putting anybody off on that horse.
Okay, so like I said, I like trying to find a little one there at odds, and it's $15 here. The other Group 1 is the JJ Atkins, but it's not a Group 1 punting race unless a horse really screams that it's going to be a star like Broadsiding last year, for instance. This year it's a low confidence race. We'll pick up a bit of time here. Is it a race that interests you at this stage?
Yes, it interests me in terms of wanting to watch the race. Absolutely, I'm keen to watch it. But the horse that's at the top, and just purely by default, because I had to remove that last run, the profile of the way they've set this horse along is a nightmare.
Cool,
and I'm just sort of sitting back here saying, wow, that's a crazy way to try and have a horse to peak on this race. I'm not saying it can't, but it wouldn't be the way I would be liking to be on a horse from a betting point of view at 1,600 metres. There's no way I could get excited. And that's at the top of the market. And then when I sit back and say, well, yeah, top of the market, and you got a minus 1.2, and then I look at everybody behind, they're all struggling.
Well, it does seem that Waller's set hidden achievement to peak here. The blinkers go on, 4th run, first prep, which is sometimes a negative, but not if you're sort of building with a grand final in mind. What did it do at Canterbury on debut? Because that's the run that sort of interests me before 2 wet track runs.
Yeah, well, the 12.50 run there, Ralphie, there was a race with no speed early. It was going 8.6 lengths below benchmark. The move in the middle was huge. plus 5.8, and no surprise. And even the last 400, reasonably solid with a plus 2.3. There was some deterioration, but I felt this was probably your biggest insight about what you can do in terms of having a slow pace. I don't feel that's going to be the case here, where you're going to be able to breathe. This is big field. They're going to run. It's going to be competitive. And I don't know if that's going to work in his favour, but I do agree with you, Ralphie, that this horse is going to be most likely much better suited on top of the ground as opposed to Give. But the challenge still remains, how strong are you really going to be in a 1,600 metre race with the potential of a lot more speed?
Race 5 on the program here for, what is that, listed race for 1,200 metres. The favourites need some luck. It's come up most advantage on your early edition, moderate confidence level. I couldn't fault this horse, Vince. What am I missing?
No, I don't think you're missing anything, Ralphie. I thought the first up run was superb. Broke benchmark. Got inside the top 20 for the day. I felt the pace of the race probably prevented it, like where this horse was sitting, 6 lengths below benchmark, from really putting down a bigger figure. You could see there was a little bit of a subtle slowdown between the 4 and the 2, which I felt cost the horse another half length. But I actually felt that this horse ran, even though officially on the scoreboard it's 0.1, but I felt that it ran every bit as good as its 0.4 above last campaign. So I felt this horse has come back better. And then second up, they stayed at 1,200 metres, the Gold Coast. Just the wrong race shape. On those ground conditions, it was very strong though late, Ralphie, just franking the fact that it needed more speed and probably would have made a mess of him. So here we are, decent field, going to have I feel a race shape that's going to suit this horse in terms of speed. They're going to definitely run 4 or 5 lengths quicker than last start. And it's got the right person on board as well, Tommy Berry. Does it make it the winner, though? I'm pretty keen to see what this Compelling Truth does, Ralphie. There's a little bit of an odds. I just love that run 2 starts back. I just thought that was a sensational run. Could have been flattened from that run, and they went back 100 metres. Just feel back to the 1,200 metres. Any glimpse of that last start performance? Dangerous runner.
No, it's $13, so keep on side, but
Yep.
but the favourite is hard to knock. The
Absolutely.
race 4 on the program here. So the favourite's quietly arrogant, which I sort of had to do a bit of a double take, but then I watched the barrier trial and I thought, well, that's probably it's probably very likable on that barrier trial with J-Mac on it. It had been running in the elite 2-year-old races on the way through, and now Gelded, which is an interesting one. First up, Gelded off a reasonably short break of 74 days. How are you seeing this race?
Yeah, well, if the trial's any indication of what we can expect, then this horse is going to smash through anything it's done last campaign or in any of its runs so far. And there's a big chance this horse is going to turn up and run benchmark or better. So I get it. And I just sort of looked at that run at Randwick on the 1st of March over 1,200 metres. Even though the overall performance was minus 4.6, the race matrix did nudge it a little bit stronger, and I couldn't help but be captivated by the last 400 metres. But the trial just said this horse has gone to the next level. And here we are, 1,200 metres. If that ground is clean, which is what we can expect, then I feel that they're going to be right, and J-Mac has got to be a big plus.
Well, that's a very bullish assessment from a trial from you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't knock it, Ralphie. I mean, it's borderline benchmark.
Nice. The is it the Queensland Cup? I think it's called. I thought Etna Rosso really looks like it's set for this. So it's over 2 miles. It's a bit of a 2-horse race according to the market with Capaldino. The other one, they're coming off that absolute mess of a track last start. And of course, then there's the veteran True Marvel, who at least is he's had a lot of practice at this type of distance. Is this a race that interests you?
Well, it does actually, Ralphie.
Yeah.
It actually does, because I'm against Capaldino.
Yeah.
So that's why it interests me, right? I'm not sure, I know the horse won at Eagle Farm last start on, really wet ground, but Ralphy, you couldn't get it any slower. They've just crawled 14.9 lengths below benchmark. Yes, it finished off very nicely over the last 200 metres with a plus 1.6. The horse got a huge WTI from that run, just really franking how much it loves the wet ground. And I don't believe we're going to be on anything like that ground condition tomorrow. So I sat back there and said, okay, if you're up the top, who are the real threats? Because I wouldn't back you. Now, I'm not saying you can't win. This is just me personally. And I just said to him, okay, the three horses that I had actually ahead of it were Etna Rossa, the one you mentioned, True Marvel, and Allegron. All three of them quite capable of running big. And then Allegron was interesting because it's a horse that's performed at this distance in the past. And I said, okay, well, where are we at with this horse? It's had 3 runs in this campaign. Now, it depends on what your position is about how you feel this horse might improve off what it's done, because it hasn't shown nothing. But if you look carefully, Ralphy, you would have been the first person to pull this up at the Crown. You would have said, the horse has run third last, but the squeeze of 21.7 lengths means you're not going badly. No. That's massive. Wrong race shape. Then you look at the run before that at 2,000 metres on extremely heavy ground. What do you want the horse to do? The horse is going at a good pace, 8.7 lengths below benchmark, isn't going to have the finish, is nowhere near fit enough. So I said to myself, I got to watch this horse, because that run last start was really more to do with the horse that could have easily have finished in the money, and yet he's got a 13th next to his name. And I only have to look at the real race. Look what it did over the last 600 metres and 800 metres. That was the sign of a horse that's ready to launch, and absolutely is going to appreciate the 3,200 metres. It's not going to be a race that's going to be run fast. And let's just go back. Eagle Farm.
This race last year. This race.
There it is. 1.2 lengths below bench. So if you run to that level, what happens?
Yeah. Can the trader get him to turn around quickly? Bjorn Baker?
That was the next thing. I go, Bjorn. I love Rachel King as well. I just couldn't help but feel this was the first horse that caught my eye as about being capable of beating Capolino. And then I looked at Etna Rossa, the one you mentioned at the start, Ralphie, with J Mac on board. Of course, I've got to look at that horse. How do you fault this horse? How do you fault this horse? Again, you look at the Gosford run 2 starts back, 2,100 metres, 23.1 length mid-race squeeze. Phenomenal last 400 metres. That's like a sign of airborne. Then goes to 2,400 metres. Again, a no-pace race. 17.6 lengths below benchmark. The track condition being damper than the one that was at Gosford, and still put a 15-length mid-race squeeze, broke benchmark over the last couple of 100 metres, all things pointing to this horse is now right at its top. And you sit back and say, okay, well, we need to get 3,200 metres. On its overseas profile, I've got this horse pinned around -0.5, -1 range. Looks set to run to that. Has to be highly respected here. And then the last runner was the other one that you mentioned, Ralphie, which we also got to give some sort of respect to, for sure. And this is True Marble. Yeah. How are we going to knock this horse? And I know
he loves the long trip.
Yeah. Well, let's look at that last run. Again, this was at 3,200 metres at Sandown. Diabolical race shape. See, this is the thing with a lot of these staying races. When you've got to make these big squeezes, it's very, very hard to get victory. And yet, the way this horse closed out the last 400 metres of the race, going 3.5 above at 3,200 metres, and had the complete reversal from the previous run at Flemington I mean, you got virtually a 30-length turnaround, Ralphy. And of course, that day the horse ran nowhere, and this time it's run fourth. If they go 10 lengths quicker, that horse wins that race. So I go, look at this horse. This is the race. As long as it's settled in well and parades appropriately, then you know this is going to be another horse that's going to be hard in the finish.
Ran second in a Sydney Cup in 2023 with the -1, and dare say that'll get it right in the finish. But
yep.
I think in summary, a leg run at $31 is an insane price. Win, lose or draw.
Ralphy, absolutely. It's just a ridiculous price. And it's all got to do with, and did you say the Whirlpool's on in all races?
No, just races 8 and 9. Yeah, so you
what a pity.
Don't even have to worry about it.
No, it's a pity. I wish it was on in this race because we'd get a bigger price because Capolino would probably start odds on.
Race 2, if Transatlantic doesn't get a run in the Stradbroke, it's running here. Is this picking money off the ground?
Well, I hope it doesn't get a run, Ralphie.
It's your playing.
Yeah, why wouldn't I think that way, right? But I hope it doesn't get a run because this is where we can open up the batting. Yeah. It's perfect. The mile, absolutely perfect. This field, perfect. Only repeats last start run. We get the money. The horse, I cannot see the horse running out of the first three. So I just hope it doesn't get a start because it's a lot tougher the other race. And not, of course they want it to get a start because it's big money. But from a betting proposition, this is a far better situation to be locked in on. And we'll know in the morning, but I can tell you right now, Ralphie, I'll be upgrading that race if the horse runs in this race because away from that, I'm a bit nervous about the race.
And race 1 has got a lot of depth to it. It's a small field there. Just Party on the quick back up from the wide draw, completely conceding, and now in a draw, Nashra Willa.
Hard to fault.
Yep.
It's pretty much a rock solid 1.2 below benchmark with Emirate. I felt that they were the two prime horses from my perspective. It's a small field. As crazy as it sounds, if it wasn't race 1, it's half a betting proposition race for me because I felt that these two horses clear the rest.
Well, I've noticed Emirate.
Gap.
I was just going to say with Emirate, $5 in the 350 first up at the Gold Coast, but that track was diabolical. They've now given it 5 weeks between runs, and they'll be keen to put some black type on this, given he's a colt before the end of the 3-year-old campaign. So that gives them a chance. I think they'd be all out to try and win this one tomorrow, Emirate.
Well, I feel that the mile is a big plus as well. There's a big opportunity for this horse tomorrow to demonstrate what it's capable of. It's come off a long break. In some ways, that run's probably been a big enabler. And I love the fact that it's the 35 days between runs. And we might see a very different horse tomorrow if that ground's clear. And these two horses, just on profile, just looked clearly ahead of the rest of the competition.
All right, hopefully there's a few nuggets amongst the hour today. Nice solid hit out there, Vince, and we'll talk business tomorrow. Thanks so much for being a customer of Year Round Carnival.